Okay, let's talk about brushes. So I want to talk about brushes. And again, this is a similar, you're going to notice this theme with the way I think about art supplies. Brushes probably have 15,000 different kinds of brushes. The hair of this very special squirrel and the hair of that whatever thing, there's too much to discuss. So the way I think about brushes and the way I think you should think about brushes is simplify it. Is it hard? Is it soft? Or is it somewhere in between? That's it. And once you think about it that way, now we can start to describe what works best for what stage of the painting. So my favorite analogy for this is think about the different tools that you need in order to build a building. You start with the tools that are very, very aggressive, very bold. Like you come in with the dynamite to get rid of the stones, and then you come in with the tractors, and you come in with the jackhammers. You move big things around aggressively and boldly. And then as the building builds up, and then now you're starting to put the finer touches in the bathroom, now you're using sandpaper and little silicone glue, and you're putting the tiles in delicately, right? So when you're building up any kind of ambitious project, you usually start aggressive and bold and move towards delicate and refined. That's the same thing with the brushes. So what you want to be starting with when you're starting a painting, you want to start with hard brushes. My favorite kind of hard brushes are natural bristle, to just put the big shapes in, the big areas of the design, to just cover the canvas with enough paint boldly in a non-timid way. If you start a painting with a brush that's too soft, sometimes just there's not enough coverage, there's not enough to work with. So you want to start big, start bold, start with momentum. And then once you have your structure starting to get established, you gradually move to softer and softer instruments, because the harder brushes are going to feel more and more clumsy the deeper you try to go into the more refined areas. So I usually start my paintings with natural bristle brushes, which are very hard. Then the middle of the process would look more like synthetic nylon brushes, which are kind of medium. And then I would finish my paintings with very soft sable brushes. So that's kind of like the journey that I go on with my painting process. And then that said, this whole thing can get compressed into one evening if it's an alla prima. If it's an alla prima, I would still go through this same process, only over the course of 3 hours instead of over the course of a month or however long it may take me. If you're a beginner and you need to pick very few brushes to work with, just get the hard ones. Just get the hard, don't even try to get the softer brushes. They are way more likely to create bad habits, because soft brushes lead us to wanting to create fine details, because that's literally what they're good for. When you're holding a soft brush, you can't really put that chunky big shape of whatever the forehead. It's just the brush doesn't lift enough paint. It's cumbersome. It just doesn't work. And so when you're holding that brush, it makes you into a detail oriented machine. And when you're a beginner, you're very likely to have all the good intentions, but you're very likely to overexpress details and put them in the wrong place. So I highly recommend, if you're just starting out, to focus on the hard brushes and focus on the big construction of the important starting phases of putting all the big spots where they belong. And a lot of really great painting can be done exclusively with hard brushes. This is a recommendation for like how to correctly practice, but generally that's how I think about brushes. Like, is it hard? Is it medium? Or is it soft? And then where does it belong in my process?
Pardon the interruption. Hope you're enjoying this video. And if you are, please take a moment to like it and to subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss any of my upcoming cool stuff. And if you want to support my mission of making art education affordable and accessible, please consider joining my Patreon through the link in the description below. You'll have access to live lessons, full recorded workshops, Q&As, and much, much more. And you can sign up today for as little as $2. Thanks in advance for the support. Now back to the action.
So the three main shapes of brushes are round, filbert, and flat. or bright. Flat and bright are both the square brushes, but they are different length. And basically, each brush creates a different kind of stroke. But it would be irresponsible for me to say, oh, you should use these brushes here and these brushes there, because that's exactly what contributes to the fact that we all have our own personal style. So I always tell the story that I have a preference for a specific kind of brush, and I feel like, oh man, this is how you resolve all these visual effects. Like, this is the best brush for it. And then I look at my friend's work, whom I appreciate very much, and she uses the exact opposite brushes for everything that I thought made sense. And I'm just like, what is going on? And what is going on is personal preferences. So I don't like to discuss the quote unquote correct shape of the brush that you should use for any given area or any given task, because I have been thoroughly convinced that any shape can be used for any area. It's a matter of like personal preference that will later determine how your paintings look like. That said, an exercise that I find extremely useful for learning how to use the different shapes of the different brushes and understanding what works best for you for any given effect that you're trying to create is actually do something. And this is torture. Okay. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but limit yourself to using only one shape for a month. So 1 month, just round. 1 month, just filbert. 1 month, just flats. Once you've imposed that limitation on yourself, you're going to understand, oh, flats do this really well, but all this other stuff, not so much. And you will understand that about all the shapes of the brushes. And once you've gone through this nightmare, having all your supplies back in your arsenal, you're going to feel more confident about when you're going to reach out for this one and when you're going to reach out for that one. So I've imposed this on myself, and I didn't produce many good paintings during those 3 months. But after those 3 months, I was never confused about what brush I need. And when it comes to the shape, I was like, oh, this works really well with the filbert. And so what I recommend is take the time to intimately familiarize yourself with the different shapes of the brushes and what they can do by excluding all the other shapes. And that will lead you to have a very good grasp about how they work. This is round. This is filbert that looks like a tongue. And this is flat, which looks like a square. Da-da-da-dum, da-dum.